Welcome to the Melanin Jelly Project Conversations, a podcast that celebrates diversity and representation in children's storytelling, entertainment, and edutainment. I am the host, Olunosen Louisa Ivaze. On this podcast, I chat with authors and creators of children's books, entertainment, and edutainment. This is also a collaboration with the Ottawa Black Book Club. So thank you so much for sending me a copy of your book. It got me thinking about a lot of things after reading it, up to the color of the outfit I chose to wear today, because I wasn't too sure. I was just thinking, is it too bright? Is it going to be too dark? So I just thought, you know what? Why not just find some sort of balance in between? Got a little black, a little white. Yeah, but I'm here to learn a lot from you today. Yeah. So welcome Tania Wieclaw. So Tania is the author of When My Brain Is Messy. Tania is joining us this morning all the way from Australia. So
yes, I am.
So welcome to our Conversations podcast. This podcast is part of the Melanin Jelly Project. So the Melanin Jelly Project is a project I started to educate children about the continent of Africa through great books. And then I realized that there was a gap in podcasts that celebrate representation, inclusion, equity, diversity. And I decided to start this podcast. And it's been an amazing journey. This is season 2.
Yeah.
It's given me, I always say this platform has been a blessing because it's given me the opportunity to meet all kinds of people and to learn. So yeah.
100%.
Yeah, so welcome Tania. So go ahead Tania, tell me about yourself and what inspired you to write this book, because I learned new words and I made notes.
Fantastic. Okay, so I myself am a late diagnosed autistic individual with ADHD. I have 2 neurodivergent children, and my inspiration behind the book in itself, I suppose, kind of came out of desperation to make change, especially when it comes to acceptance within diversity, just inclusion in general. So yeah, about a year ago, I went to an education panel here in Australia, talking about local schools, and parents were welcome to come to sort of ask questions about what the education department is doing, for schools. And the focus was on teachers, but as a parent, my focus was what changes have been made since I was at school for children who have struggles within the system. And it was quite shocking to realize that there's still gaps, fundamental gaps missing in school systems. And it kind of left me in a place of worry because my oldest is starting primary school next year. And I was thinking, how can I do something to make a change for my children so they don't relive the traumas that I went through when I was in primary school and high school. And so the book in itself wasn't sprung at that stage. It was earlier on this year. We went to the museum, and my son, he was really overstimulated and he was getting very hyperactive. And sometimes when children get to that pivot point of hyperactivity, they can sort of crash, and I could see we were getting really close to that. So we went to a quiet space into a parents room at the museum, and my son, I said to him, what's going on? And he's gone, Mum, my brain is messy. And I'm like, that's a really it was a really accurate way of, what it really feels like when your brain is messy. And so he ran around in circles about 20 times, and he did some breathing exercises with his hand, just the one through the fingers, and he had regulated himself. And so I remember just thinking wow, how much he intuitively knew how to do that for himself. And it just remember just feeling so impressed that I've been able to give him a platform where he's been able to sort of look at himself and figure out what he needs, and me sort of harboring that for him. And then I woke up the next morning, and I'm like, oh, when my brain is messy, that would be a really good book. So I sent it to myself in a text message of like, oh, goodness knows what time in the morning. And then I have a friend who does self-publishing courses, and she's been like telling me for about a year to just write a book. She's like, you got so much to say, you advocate so hard, you really should be, doing something about it. So I ended up, self-publishing my book, and that whole entire book I wrote in one afternoon, actually. So once I started writing it, I just decided I could just touch base on all the sensitivities that I have, sensitivities my family has, and it was just possibly one of the most easiest things that I've ever been able to express, because it was something that was like so personal. It just, since then it's been taken flight, having so much support from psychologists, from occupational therapists, from speech therapists, other parents who have neurodivergent children. And it's been quite a journey. Even though it's been a short journey, it's been quite a good one so far.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's been a long or a short journey. As long as it's a good journey, then it's been a journey that's been worth it. Yeah. So some of the things I noted from the book, you mentioned sensory sensitivities related to autism and ADHD. So what I have heard in layperson's terms are autism, and I've heard of ADHD, but I've never connected it to sensory sensitivities. Yeah. So help us understand. Talk to us about what you mean by sensory sensitivities to autism and ADHD. What does that mean?
Okay, so sensory sensitivities, basically what it is it's just trying to sort of explain it. But so I'll talk about it from a personal perspective, because that's probably the easiest way to explain is from my own experiences. So every autistic person or ADHD person, we all have our own little profile. And our profile doesn't mean like there's no one way that an autistic person is, or one way someone who's ADHD is. Some of us could have noise sensitivities, whereas others could have sensitivities to light. Some people don't like to be touched, whereas others like to be hugged and have that deep pressure. So for myself, I have misophonia. So misophonia is having a huge sensitivity to sound. So for me, I have quite a few triggering sounds that affect me in a way that does like impact my daily life. So things like, as an example, you know how bass music, for example, you can hear that bass, and that can, you know, a lot of people don't like that, especially when they're trying to go to bed at night or whatnot. But when I hear it, my whole body feels it. It's not just a auditory experience for me, it's a full body experience. And even before I got diagnosed, I have always been like sensitive to noises. My little sister and myself, whenever we had moments where we didn't get along, she realized after I got my diagnosis that every single time there was those moments, it was always related to some sort of noise she was making. So there's that. Or as an example as well, when I hear a truck idling, there's this very low idle that happens when a truck is just sort of idling at a stoplight, for example, and that feeling in itself can make me dizzy, makes me feel nauseous. It's a full body experience. But the funny thing about that is if I have a consistent noise around me that is predictable, and it sort of drowns sort of unexpected noises out, then I'm a bit better when it comes to those noises. But even tonight, when my partner was making dinner, he was sharpening a knife, and every time he does it, he has to tell me so I can put my headphones on and put music on really loud, just so I can't hear that, because the noise just makes me it just triggers like a fight response straight away. Then you've got other sensory ones, like for sight. I cannot go outside without sunglasses at all. If I do, I will, like, my eyes will water straight away, won't be able to see. Like, if it's really, really overcast, it's not so bad, but on a sunny day, if I go outside without sunglasses for more than 10 or 15 minutes, I'll end up with a migraine later on that day. Yeah, these are just some of the experiences, whereas, you know, I've got 2 children, and one of them has moments where they don't want any touch at all. The other one, however, is the absolute opposite and is always seeking pressure and seeking touch all the time. So yeah, like I said, the sort of scales of it, it's usually sort of the extreme where it's either so much sensitivity or no sensitivity at all. It's sort of, the balance is a bit out, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's probably the best way to kind of explain it.
Okay, so would you say that the reason why we have delayed diagnosis is because these things are invisible? Like, they are not, because I don't know, is it classified as autism or ADHD? Are they classified as disabilities?
Yes, definitely are. Yep.
So they are invisible disabilities, right?
They are, yeah, hidden or invisible disabilities, correct.
Okay.
And autism in itself also can be kind of defined as a dynamic disability. Okay. So it's heavily impacted by our environment. So if our environment is optimum for us, okay, then, you know, we have more likelihood of thriving in that environment. But when an environment is not optimum, then that's where it can have an impact on us where we would need extra accommodations.
Okay. And so because in the world we live in today, because I had written down a question: what is defined as normal? You know, because a lot of people will say, a disability is what is not normal. And my question is, who gets to define what is normal? Do you call a situation normal because it's more common?
Well, when you say, for example, you've got neurodivergent versus neurotypical. So neurotypical is more like that typical way that people present, and they are the majority. And then you got, you know, the neurodivergent, where there are a lot of people out there that have, you know, struggles or have sensitivities and whatnot. But I think, like, I've got my older sister, she does work in the disability sector, and from what my knowledge, anyway, from Australia, the actual definition for disability is to do with the environment. So you can say that if somebody has even, you know, disabilities that you can see, if they have the right environment, they can still thrive in that particular environment if it has been adjusted to help them, if it's been adjusted to their circumstances. So it is very much an environmental situation. So what defines someone as normal or not normal, I don't really like to use the term normal in a sense, because it is such a diverse, like, it's a very, like, you know, stereotypical situation that kind of puts everybody into a category. And I don't think that everybody fits into a single category. I think everybody has, you know, their own, you know, situation and differences and whatnot. But yeah, I suppose autism just has, you know, its situation where, you know, we, you know, have got, you know, more sort of difficulties in a sense with certain things and how, you know, the norm is.
Okay. So how important do you think it is for children to see themselves reflected in stories like this? When I was reading it, I was saying to myself, this makes a lot of sense. For a child going through this, I think it's the word reaffirming or reassuring that, there are people like me out there. So how important do you think it is for children to see themselves reflected in books like this?
I think it's incredibly important. I've been fortunate enough to have had my book out there enough for me to get responses from parents. And the responses that I've been getting is overwhelming in a very good way. And I have had parents tell me that their child has felt seen. I have had parents send me a message saying, your book, after reading a book with my child, they said that they felt special, like that dinosaur is like me and I'm special. And I've even had parents like actually say, like, who are autistic themselves, who, you know, ended up like getting quite emotional by the end of the book. So yeah, I do feel it's quite important, and thanks to social media, we're able to actually sort of reach far and wide these days, where we can actually connect with people that are very similar to us and make us feel like we aren't alone, and that we are, you know, accepted, and, you know, there are people out there that are like us, and it is a nice feeling.
So how do you think that teachers can support children experiencing some of these things? Because, you know, when you spoke about the definition of normalcy and like putting people into a category, it's like boxing people. My sister, I have learned that autism and I think ADHD, autism has a spectrum. So it's a broad spectrum. And one thing I know is that many times people are not comfortable with what they don't understand.
Oh, 100%.
Yes, and as a result, are not empathetic and supportive to people going through these I don't want to call it a condition.
No, yeah.
Yes, they are not empathetic and supportive to people in environments that don't support who they are. So how do you think teachers can be supportive to children, especially in schools? Because this is a children's book. So if a child was going through some of this, how do you think that a teacher can be supportive to that child and also encourage other children to be supportive to this child going through this?
So I think starting conversations with the book in general, I don't know if you've noticed, but my little dinosaur character, when they're dysregulated, their tummy is one color, and then when they're regulated and calm, they are rainbow. And a lot of school systems tend to use color codes, especially around behavior, which that sort of doesn't sit well with me. But on purpose, I made a change in the color of this dinosaur's tummy to go rainbow, to sort of be able to reflect that there has been a difference in how the dinosaur feels. And I felt like that simplicity that's been added to the book allows simplicity for children to sort of understand that, oh, you know, there's accommodations that we can make for people or our friends or whatnot. You know, we can do simple things to help. And if you have a look at the parents in the book as well, I made sure that their expressions were affirming, they were calm, and they were made in a way where, you know, it sort of modeled the behavior that, you know, these children who are dysregulated, what they need is that calm. And then the way I've written it is quite simple and it rhymes, and I've done that in a way also so that way I could keep kids engaged. So I feel that the book can sort of create conversations around, you know, what you can do to accommodate. And the beautiful thing is that, you know, a lot of children haven't got that emotional intelligence yet where they know how to regulate their own feelings. And even as adults, like, we need co-regulation sometimes when we're feeling upset or overwhelmed about a situation, and another adult will come into the factor, or we'll call somebody to talk through our own like problems. And so I think that, yeah, that in general is a great way to sort of teach kids by modeling what I've got in the book.
Okay. And what do these color codes mean? Because I was looking at the color codes, and for me, I guessed it had something to do with the emotions of the dinosaur. But what do they mean?
Yeah, so without the rainbow, that's when the dinosaur is dysregulated.
Okay.
So that's when they're going through whichever sensory sensitivity that particular page is talking about. And then you'll see when the accommodations have come in to play. So you could see, like with the headphones, when they're going through a noisy phase, their tummy is back to being regulated. Yep, that one is when demand avoidance comes out, when they've been say had an overstimulating day or whatnot, and they struggle to do things.
You mentioned, I saw the word for the first time, neuro-affirmation. Yeah. Talk to us about that.
So, neuro-affirming, I am very sort of careful on purpose with the type of language that I use. I know, like, in general, for any form of, I suppose, communities, language is really important. And it's the same in the autistic community as well. And so I try to use language that is widely accepted, because it's just, I suppose, a way of respecting my own community and, also modeling, again, ways of being able to describe how we feel, like sensory processing differences. As an example, I use that instead of a disorder, because it is a difference, and when we are accommodated, we are able to do, what we need to do, I suppose.
Okay. So when writing this book, what were some of the challenges writing this? Because I like the language. It's simple, it's clear. Not everyone can write like that. Because I write books too, but if I was going to write this, I'm sure mine would be 10,000 words. Yeah, but I like yours. Crisp, clear, concise. So
I don't know how to answer that. Like I was saying, it was literally the most easiest thing I've ever had to write. My heart was so in it when I was writing it, and I can tell you there was a lot of tears as well, because I was reflecting on my own struggles throughout the book. And the last page, if you notice, there's a bit of an affirmation there, and every time I got to that last page, it was also something that I was telling myself as well. So yeah, I like I said, I'm just not really even. I feel like sometimes it wasn't even me that did it, and I still say to my partner, I don't even know how I did it. I just hyper focused, which is an autistic ADHD thing to do. Is I just got into this zone, and one just came after another, and I just kept going. And yeah, like I said, within 2 or 3 hours, I had this book, and I just was like, okay, wow, what do I do with this now? And yeah, I just. Not sure. Was it luck? I'm not sure. It just came to me so clearly, I suppose. Maybe it was just something that I was meant to do.
Okay. So how do you think that authors who write diverse stories can work together? How do you think they can come together to put their books out there? Because we're grateful for social media, and because we have social media, everybody gets to see this. I'm all the way in Canada. You're all the way in Australia. And now I have read your book. I know about your book. So how do you think that authors who write diverse stories can work together? Or what do you think are some of the challenges such authors have when it comes to working together?
Well, for me, I've been quite fortunate. I just finished a business degree with majoring in marketing. So I do know a few little tricks on how to sort of get myself out there. So that was a huge benefit, knowing how to write copy and how to design things as well. Like that's something that I like to do too. My colors are all sort of branded in a way. When it comes to other authors, I do go on groups like on Facebook. I connect with other authors on Instagram, and a lot of the time, we bring each other up. The self-publishing group that I'm a part of as well, we've formed a little community in there where we help each other with questions whenever we have them. And I think that really helps as well, is when you find other people who are on a similar journey and you figure things out together. I think that kind of helps as well. Podcasts like what you're doing, this is a big way of being able to put yourself out there. So thank you for having me on your little podcast. That's been like amazing to sort of, this might be my first like video podcast actually. So I just feel like there is a beautiful community out there, and just helping each other really does, because there are questions that you have along the way when you're writing a book. I see it all the time. Everything needs to be thought about, from the type of font you use to formatting the book, and making sure that it fits on the page right. Like, there's so many things to consider and so many questions that you have. So yeah, it definitely helps having that community there.
Okay, so I noticed that you self-published.
Mm-hmm.
So why did you choose to self-publish? Why didn't you go through the traditional publishing route?
I suppose because I did my friend's self-publishing course, so I just had the steps right in front of me to do it. So I just did it that way because that was how it was presented to me. It was the course that was presented to me first, okay. And then I wrote the book that same week. So I was like, it was just, like I said, everything, all the stars, everything just aligned in the right way for that to happen, I suppose.
All right. And how did you find your illustrator, Rahul Chakraborty?
So I did find him on a platform for designers, and I put a job out there, and Rahul, he had never done any illustrations for a book that he had actually been named as an illustrator before. And he really bid hard for my job. He really wanted to work for me. I remember we did a sample, and the first sample wasn't really where I was sort of heading with what I wanted. And I remember even saying, oh look, I'm not sure. And then he sent another sample, and I was like sort of getting samples from other illustrators as well, and other illustrators were kind of trying to send me their version of what they thought my book should have instead of working with my own vision, whereas he was really adamant to work with my vision. Okay. So based on that alone, I worked with him because I really did like the fact that he gave me some creative control, because it was very important, like I said, with the parents' expression on their faces, with the colours of the book not being too overstimulating. Like, you'll notice that the book is colourful, but it's not overstimulating colourful.
Yes.
So there were so many elements in that book that needed to be just right, so that way autistic children can read it without feeling overstimulated, and being able to read it with ease. Okay. And where is Rahul located? Rahul is in India.
Oh, okay.
So Rahul is in India. Sorry?
Was he expensive?
He wasn't crazy expensive at all. No. I am actually hiring him for another book at the moment, and we're increasing our rates as we go along and do base like extra bonuses and whatnot. Okay. So no, he wasn't like crazy expensive. He wasn't like super cheap either. But he was pretty good.
He did a good job. Because
he did an amazing job.
Yeah,
and it was actually quite sad in some aspects, because I asked him if he wouldn't mind me putting his actual name on the book as an illustrator, and he was so grateful because he's never had any of his work being named before.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's really nice, because I know sometimes some illustrators, some authors at the back, because after reading it, when I was looking at the illustration, I went to I was expecting to see your bio and maybe the bio of Rahul, because I got curious. I just got curious. I wanted to know more. Who is this illustrator? He did a good job. The colors are...
He did an amazing job.
Yeah, they are cool. They are easy on the eyes. It's not too intense. Yeah, that was the first thing that got me, because I looked at the lilac, I looked at the greens, but everything is just... It's just nice.
The colors actually were I did the coloring, so I created all the colors and I sent him like the complementing colors. And when he went to put them in, he was going, okay, I'll put them in and I'll let you know how it goes. But then I didn't hear from him for a few days. And I'm like, oh, how's it going with the colors? And he goes, actually, works fantastically. He sent me the whole entire thing colored, and it was just like it was just perfect. But he sort of came up with a color of the dinosaur. Well, we went through a few different colors of the dinosaur, and then I used the color of the dinosaur to sort of get all the color blocks of that, and then I did this tricolors of each of those 4 colors, and then I sort of used a transparency tool to make them a bit lighter. So I had, I think, about, what was that? I think about 12 colors, and then just like lighter versions of that 12 colors, and they're all in that book, which is why they all complement each other.
Okay. So if someone was going to write a story like this, someone who hasn't had the experience of autism, ADHD, or even met people experiencing this, if somebody just decided, ooh, I think this is a good cause and I want to write a story for children about this, what are some tips you can give the person? What would you say to the person? Because for someone who is not like, I couldn't have written this book because it's not my experience, I'm not an expert, and I don't know. Because if I was going to write this, I would have put all intense, bright colors, orange, yellow. Yeah, because that's me. I like my chair. You see the color of my seat. Yeah, so I think in colors. My microphone is red. I think in colors. Yeah, that's how I am. On days when I don't feel too bright, I go with my brightest lipstick, my reddest lipstick. So I have different shades of red. So if I was going to write a story like this, to say, okay, I want to write a story that helps the larger society understand the autistic community or people on that spectrum, what are some tips you can give me?
Well, I think like you kind of half answered your question while you were speaking it. Like you were saying you wouldn't write something that you didn't know anything about. And I think that in a case of disabilities such as autism and whatnot, if you're not someone who has fully experienced or lived with autism, it's not something that would be easily able to write. It is something that even living with it for almost 40 years, I still had to be quite immersed within my own community for years in itself. I had to read about other people's experiences because, you know, how I experience life is not necessarily how everybody else experiences it too. So it really took a long time. And then also becoming a mother as well, you know, that makes, like that in itself came with a lot of experience. So it's very hard to give advice to someone who has no experience around autism to write a book around autism. I would probably say the best advice would be to advocate the voices that have experienced it and advocate their content to other people to learn, because I think the best thing is I don't think anybody like really can represent a community without sort of being in the community, if that makes yeah, but sometimes the harsh reality is I have come across books written by people about experiences they have no business writing about. Sometimes people tend to write from theory. Oh, I think that is what those people feel. I think it's a space that would be best spoken about or written about from the community itself. And if someone is wanting to advocate that space, then it's best to, advocate, the people who are in that space already, or people who, live with it, in order to be able to like really experience, what it's like. But it's like that with most books. Like, it's hard to write any type of book if you don't know what it's about, or you look at even textbooks that are written by professors and whatnot. I would never try to write a book on mathematics or on economics or whatnot, because I'm not an expert in that area. I haven't lived it or breathed it or researched it enough to even begin to know or understand.
So would you like to read your book to us?
Yeah, sure.
Your voice, yes. So you read, and let me see.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So I can show pictures as you read.
All right. Okay, ready?
Yes.
When my brain is messy, I find it hard to think. I listen to my body to help me out real quick. I run around in circles, round and round I go. This helps my brain go from really fast to really, really slow. When my brain is messy, I feel angry and feel mad. I want to yell really loud to help me feel less sad. I yell into my pillow, I scream and then I shout. Sometimes it feels really good to let those feelings out. When my brain is messy, I can't do simple things. I find it hard to pick up toys or put rubbish into bins. My brain just needs a moment to relax and to be still, so I sit and watch my favorite show to help my cup refill. When my brain is messy, noises sound too loud. The smallest noise to others sounds like being in a crowd. I need some peace and quiet, or to hear a soothing sound. I put on comfy headphones where my quiet can be found. When my brain is messy, lights can feel too bright. I want to hide away somewhere out of sight. I build a fort to hide in, or snuggly and dark. This cozy little hideaway really hits the mark. When my brain is messy, sometimes I don't like touch. My body feels so sensitive, it really is too much. My body needs some time and space to stop and to reset. This little space can really help and makes me less upset. When my brain is messy and my body's feeling light, I need someone to pick me up and squeeze me really tight. Big cuddles is what I'm after, a giant big bear hug, to bring me back to earth again, all safe, sound and snug. When your brain is messy and you don't know what to do, remember this important thing: you are perfect just as you.
I love that. Remember this important thing: you are perfect just as you. That is beautiful. So what would you like to see for your books? What future do you hope?
The future that I hope for the book is, I would love it to be integrated into early childhood centres and early primary school. I'm not sure, is it primary school over there as well?
In Nigeria, we call it primary school. I think here it's called grade school. I don't know.
So just like, the early years of education, I'm really hoping that it's sort of integrated there. I would absolutely love to see, possibly even when parents have their children first diagnosed, to be able to be pointed in the direction of the book, just to sort of start with accommodations, because a lot of parents, when they are seeking diagnoses, especially around autism, it's because they're not sure what to do. And my book sort of offers resources and tools, and they're simple. It's very simple. It's something anyone can do, that can help with all these different, sensory experiences that autistic and ADHD kids can feel.
Okay. So are you thinking of making, in the future, are you going to make dolls? Like, are you going to make a doll, like, to represent this character?
Look, I've seen plushies being made of other people's books. I haven't thought about that just yet. I think I'm still just catching up with it all. I have a second book that I'm working on at the moment, so I'd love to just finish that one and get that one sort of out there as well. But yeah, I suppose, if people are wanting something like that, I feel like my first idea when I created this book was to maybe have a journal to go with it for kids to write about what helps them when their brain is messy. And in that way they can sort of reflect back onto the journal, because sometimes when you're feeling overwhelmed, it's very hard to remember things. But if you can reflect often enough and remember, the little tricks that you did for yourself that worked and help you regulate, then that might help them sort of create their own like little regulating habits that their brain can go back to often enough to sort of help them through the hard times where it is harder to think about how can we help ourselves.
Okay, all right. So if people want to buy your books, where can they find your books to buy?
My book is available through Amazon. It's also available on many different sites around the world. Online, of course. I have mine printed locally here in Melbourne. So I do also post like within Australia, but I would say the easiest way to get it would be through Amazon, or one of your other like online book retailers, because it seems to be available quite in a lot of places.
Okay, and what's your Instagram handle for people who want to follow you to learn more?
when.my.brain.is.messy.
Hey, when.my.brain.is.messy.
Oh, it's when my brain is messy, but with a dot instead of a space.
Oh, instead of a
so
space.
when.my.brain.is.messy.
Okay. Are you on Facebook? What's your name on Facebook?
It's the same handle everywhere. I've created a social media platform. I kept the handle everywhere.
Okay. So I would like to say, Tania, I mean, we could go on and on talking about all aspects of Neuro-Affirmation. But I just want to say a very big thank you to you, first of all, for writing this book and teaching us and helping us understand better, for creating empathy, and for just getting us thinking of how we can be more supportive. Because after reading this, like I said, I've never thought, oh, what color of top am I going to wear today? What am I going to do? How is it going to affect the other person I'm talking to? Maybe I would have showed up today in my brightest orange. And
go
ahead.
No, I was about to say, with your clothes like on a screen like this, it probably wouldn't have had a massive impact. It's more, I actually love seeing colors on people. I think it's amazing. It makes me happy when I see colors on people. It's just more when you see a bunch of conflicting colors together that is more overstimulating. But colors, when they are all in a right, like when they're put together perfectly, they just make us happy.
But and it's just an eye opener. For me, it's an eye opener because a lot of things we take for granted. For me, I can sleep through noise. I remember when I went to my hometown when my granddad passed, they had the electricity went off, so we had to get generators to generate electricity, and you wouldn't believe the generator was behind my window.
Wow.
Yes, and I slept through it.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yes, I have a way of zoning out. If I don't want to hear, I zone out. I sit there and I don't hear. I just zone out. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I just want to say once again, thank you very much. Someday in the future when I'm in Australia, I will let you know and we'll meet up for coffee. Yeah. So thank you so much. Have a great Saturday.
No worries. Well, thank you for having me.
All right. Love to your son.